Sounds good.
Welcome, this is Jessica from County Clare Farm. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited because we're here with Greg Judy, the illustrious regenerative rancher and also author. So please go ahead and check out his books. I think you have 3 in total, is that right?
I do. The first one, which would be No Risk Ranching, which is my first, and this is my second book, Come Back Farms. And then this one, How to Think Like a Grazer, that one came out 2 years ago. So I've got 3 books out now.
And this one is also really excellent for those of you who are looking to get into regenerative ranching. In particular, talking about mentorship, be sure to read the front material as well. Some very nice stories that I wanted to touch on with you.
Mentors are huge. Yeah.
And we're going to touch on that because the really big purpose I think that I want to touch on today is for people who are beginning. What is it going to take? And so maybe to kick us off, maybe you can talk a little bit about why regenerative ranching and not maybe just doing conventional methods?
Well, first of all, Jessica, with regenerative ranching, what we're talking about here is taking land that may not be quite so productive. It may even be in a degraded state. So you can't do much with it. That is where I come in. I love taking old degraded landscapes and with my grazing management, using herbivores, ruminants, to come in and landscape it. And I call myself the painter, okay? I've got the brush. My cattle are the paint. So wherever I want the cattle to be, I need to paint them in that area. And so, we use cattle to landscape with. This particular farm behind us you're looking at, this is the Judy farm. We bought this one in 1993. And it was my uncle's, and they just let it go. There wasn't anything here but just brush and cedar trees and such. And so when we bought it, I came in and started clearing some of the trees, but then we brought the cattle in. And we also bring sheep onto this farm, and goats now. But, regenerative to me is to generate your soil, get it deeper. The old adage, or the term that everybody used for many, many years, Jessica, and it got wore out, was, oh, I'm sustainable. We're running a sustainable grazing operation. Well, wait a minute. Let's look at that a minute. So I just told you we started with a degraded farm, and I'm going to sustain that. No, don't sign me up for that. I want it to be better. And so regenerating means taking the land and giving something back to it in the form of, don't take it all. Folks, we're in a 2-year drought. Does it look like it out here? No. We still have grass. Our cattle are still fat. We're still making a good living on the land. But it's because we leave some. We know that where Jessica and I are standing right here, underneath our feet, we're up to about 19 earthworms per square foot now.
Incredible.
Yep. And you get up to 25 worms per square foot, earthworms. You're talking around 20 tons of earthworm castings per acre per year. So castings are huge. That's, a casting is the manure from earthworms eating. They're eating this. So the cows trample this on the ground, and the earthworms come along and turn that into a beautiful organic fertilizer. It's natural. It's been happening for thousands of years.
So what about these farms that are degraded? How many earthworms do you see?
You won't find any. You won't find any. Our biggest farm is down the road here. That's owned by one landowner. It's 270 acres, and it was cropped. Part of it was just crop. Herbicide, pesticide, fungicide, and tillage. They tilled it. So when we got it, I told the new landowner, I said, no more tillage. And what are you going to do? I said, I'm turning that to grass. Well, it's a crop field. I said, no, it's a grass field. We're going to turn it to grass. And we did. And it took a couple years. But I remember, Jessica, walking across that poor bean field. They'd just taken the beans out that fall. And I took a spade, a shovel, and I walked around that whole field. I couldn't find one.
Not one.
There was not one earthworm anywhere in that poor
And what was
field.
the color of the soil?
Oh, it was terrible. It was like talcum powder.
Okay.
There was no life in the soil. So you know what you call that? You don't call that soil. You call that dirt. It was lifeless. It had no organic matter in it. There was ditches washing through the field because there was no organic matter to hold the soil in place. And today you can go over there after a good rain, take out a pocket knife and cut a divot out of the ground, you'll find an earthworm. In a divot that big around.
So how many years are we talking about?
20.
20 years that it took to go from...
No, we've had, I should rephrase that. We've had that farm. We leased it in 2001. This is 23. We've had it 22 years. We got it back to grass in about 2 years.
In 2 years.
In 2 years.
And then in terms of the quality of the soil...
It just gets better every year.
What would you say in terms of expectations? Like 5 years before you get to a point where you feel good about where the soil is? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. There's an old saying in this whole movement, and I'll share it with y'all. If you're not willing to give it 10 years, don't start. 10 years. Because here's what happens, Jessica. The first couple of years, it's going to be brutal. You're going to be out there trying to make things better. You're like, is it really getting any better? No, I'm serious. You're going to be looking at it, and all these weeds are going to keep coming up. Like, you're ready to get out the spray and just spray everything, kill it. They were right. You can't do regenerative. No, be patient. Nature works slower than what you and I want it to work. We want it tomorrow. Nature doesn't work that way. Conventional ag, you go buy the fertilizer, you till your land, you plop the fertilizer on, the crop comes up, and you take it out, and you do it again the next year. Well, the whole time you're doing that, your soil is getting worse and worse and worse.
So on that topic, what do you think is the future in terms of conventional ag? Does it have a future? Or where do you think in terms of the next 5 to 10 years, where do you think the industry is going? Do you see people pivoting towards regenerative ranching, farming methods? What's your read on that?
There's several things, Jessica, that I've seen, and I've been in this thing a long time. I guess it tells you how old I am. I don't care. I started this journey, I was born and raised on a farm, but I started doing grass farming, getting more serious about it when I was about 30. And I'm 64 today. So I've been in it about 34, 35 years. When I started out in this, if you mentioned the term grass-fed or grass anything, people just laughed you clear off. They just laughed you. You're an idiot and just dismissed you. But today, now some of those people that are laughing are no longer in the grazing business. I'm still in it. And they were the ones that would tell me I was going to go broke. Okay? So here's what's changed. Fertilizer. The price of fertilizer is through the roof. Okay? Fossil fuels, to fill up a tractor. I was telling you about my good friend in Texas, the ex-oil guy. The very first time I met him, he just retired from one of the world's largest oil companies, offshore oil. And he told me, he said, Greg, what you're doing, and this is before we just started doing the more planned grazing and really getting into it. He said, what you're doing is the only method that's going to keep us fed here in America.
Wow.
Because he said, if oil goes to $1,000 a barrel, he said, all these guys have got these great big tractors that it takes 500 gallons a day to run them. 500 gallons of diesel to work a field up. He said, how are they going to make that work? He said, you've got some cows and some poly water.
Right.
He said, you're going to blow them out of the water.
And you're walking.
Yeah. He said, look at your landscape. It's not destroyed. You're catching the rainwater where it lands on the ground. He said, no. He said, you're the only method there is of a future for our food production in America. And he said, not only that, he said, your food's going to heal people. Our food today, Jessica, is very, it's not nutrient dense.
No.
It's like eating cardboard, so...
you may as well eat grass.
Yeah. You and I can eat this and probably do better than eating some of the food. But, conventional agriculture definitely has its flaws. The thing that bothers me the worst is what they're doing to the soil. And I'm a farmer, and farmers today are not concerned about their soil. They've lost that connection with their soil. And I see farms being sold to subdivisions. People that, when they get done, they just sell. There will never be a subdivision on this farm, ever. We'll put a conservation easement on. I'm not going to let houses, I'm not going to be building houses all on my landscape.
No.
No, it's not going to happen. But a lot of people, they just thought, I'm done with it. Let's get that $20,000, $30,000 an acre and put it in houses. No. if you truly love the land and the soil, you could never do that.
Right.
It's selling your soul.
Yes.
It's selling your soul, Jessica. And your soul, without your soul, you're nothing. If you don't have a soul and you don't care about what you've done your whole life, your legacy, well, then what'd you do it for?
Let's talk about that a little bit. In terms of your values, what's number one? And then after that, what are the other core values that...
So number one, of course, is Jan, my wife. And if you don't put your wife or your significant other first, you probably won't have a wife.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I went through a divorce, and it's not. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, and I don't ever want to do that again. And I'm very fortunate. I found somebody I'm very compatible with, and
she happens to also be a very good cook.
She's an awesome cook. She's very ornery sometimes. I guess that's one of the reasons I love her so much. She's ornery, but no, she loves this lifestyle. She loves being outside, and I mean, to me, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Jan. And when we first met, I was going through a pretty tough time in my life. That 6-year divorce we talked about, and I didn't have anything, and I met Jan, and she loved what I did, and she understood what I was trying to do out here, the grazing part.
So you had a shared vision.
We had a shared vision, and when I started showing her what I was doing on the land, I mean, she locked in on it. And she was out here every weekend. We weren't married, but she was out here every weekend helping me develop all these farms we've got today. And we got the first farm in 1999 and leased it, and it was 160 acres. And we just started, we started like that. And I read an article about that time that said your sole purpose in life should not be to own the land, but to control it. And what the guy was talking about was leasing land. And I was broke. I was in the middle of that darn divorce, and I'm like, wait a minute. All this land around us, there's nobody doing anything with it. And so we started going and knocking on doors and went to the courthouse and got the names of people that owned the land, got in contact with them, and long story short, today we've got 19 farms.
It's incredible.
And they're all within 5 miles of our house.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so...
But you had the vision.
I had the vision. I had the vision, and I'll tell you what else. We both worked in town. And when I went to work every day, I hated it. 'Cause I had to leave my farm. I had to leave the cows, and I loved this. And I'm like, you know what? I got to do this full time. Because I could tell it was eating at my soul.
So that was your pain point.
That was my pain point. I had to get it. I had to get rid of it. When I got off work at night, I had so much pressure on my chest. I had a very stressful job. I was a demolition guy. I blew up stuff. Okay, so I could hurt people if I wasn't watching what I was doing. So it was very stressful. But anyway, I went from blowing up stuff in the daytime.
You're a handy person to know.
Yeah, I went from blowing up stuff to doing this. And so I'd get off work at night. I'd come out here with my cows and my grass and my farms, and it was just like, whew, you could just let it all.
It just melted.
It let it all go. Let it all go. And that day I walked in and gave my 2-week notice. Other than the day I met Jan, or asked her to marry me, that was the best day of my life. I was going in and telling my boss that I'm done. I did it, and that was my goal, was to do this full time, and at age 50, I quit. I quit my town job, and I've done this ever since. So,
can you talk a little bit about that passion, that fuel, that focus, and the sheer drive to accomplish that?
Yeah, so the really driving thing, Jessica, that I never lost track of the whole time, I went to a grazing class, and they were talking about this grass stuff. And grass is just grass, And they're like, no, if you learn to manage it, it's more than that. It's a crop, and it can make you a pretty darn good living if you learn how to use it correctly. I'm like, yeah, but it's still grass. And so I didn't have any respect for grass. I really didn't. And so once I got onto that, realizing that, wait a minute, you don't have to plant it. You don't have to seed it. You don't have to go buy it. It grows. It's out here. It's out here every year. Now, it may not be quite as lush as you like if you get in a drought, but I didn't have to go buy seed. Okay, I don't have to own a $100,000 tractor. I don't need a $50,000 baler. Don't need a $30,000 rake and mower. It's all right here. All you need is a cow tongue or a sheep tongue.
No.
That's my harvester. That's
Just
my
munch, munch.
and that's ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. So, yeah, my passion was getting as many workers out here on the landscape as I could, as quickly as I could, and that was going to get me out of that town job. So the sooner I could get herbivores out here roaming around this farm, giving me babies, raising a baby on the land, and getting fat. That's something I can sell. And you know what, Jessica, they were doing that while I was sleeping at night. Did you know cows eat at night?
I didn't know
They
that.
do. They get up and eat at night. And so they're actually putting on weight while you're sleeping. And they never go on strike. They don't demand an increased living wage. They just, as long as you give them something to eat, they're going to perform well for you. And then I met a guy named Gerald Fry. And Gerald got me noticing there's a term called grass genetics, getting the right genetics. The smaller frame, bigger gut on your cattle, less leg, and they call those mortgage breakers. Those will actually get rid of the mortgage on your farm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you don't sell them for any price. They're so valuable. They're like a precious ruby. The really good ones. Don't ever sell your best cows, because those are going to give you one as good as they are every year. Okay, it's like having the goose that lays the golden egg. You don't go out and chop the head off. You don't chop the head off the goose. You lose your golden egg, and it's the same way on cows. So the passion, though, I never lost faith. I never lost faith in this grass. Those days when I thought my farm was gone, I was in a divorce. The lawyer told me to sell everything. Just sell it, Greg. You're not going to be able to keep it. And I'm like, bull crap. I said, you don't know what I know. I know this can get me over the top. Because I had an old guy tell me years ago, and rest in peace, Kenneth, if you're watching, he told me, he said, always invest every spare cent you got, put it in something that eats a green blade of grass. You'll always come out. Don't invest in metal. Don't put your money in metal. Put it in a living, breathing herbivore.
Do you think that's the biggest pitfall for people?
Absolutely, 100%. Yep. My first book, No Risk Ranching, there's a whole chapter in there. It's called Resisting the New Truck Urge. Jessica, that's a tough one for men. Now, I have a new truck today, and I'll be forthright, but I paid cash for it. I didn't go get a loan for it. And starting out, you can't go buy a new truck. You can't buy all this stuff and the cows, and then ask the cows to make a payment on it for you.
Right.
Can't do that.
Well, I think this is so important because that step change from going, like you talk about in your book, that first mortgage that you have to take, but to try to pay off that debt as quickly as you can and get to a place where you're operating debt-free. Talk to me about your system.
Yep.
How you actually make that feasible.
So what we did starting out, I tell you how poor we were. I still got the checkbook at the house. I'm going to keep it forever. I had $8 in my checking account. $8. I got paid every 2 weeks. And, they had me locked in that court system, and it was all just going to the courts. And I could see in the first time in my life, I thought, you know what? Maybe I can't outwork my situation. Maybe it is going to be gone. And then I started leasing land. So my ideology at that point was every dollar I could scrape together, which wasn't very many, until I started leasing land. When I started leasing land, I started bringing other people's cattle on. When you bring other people's cattle onto your farm, I got paid $1 to $1.25 a day per cow.
Per cow.
Per cow. Well, we started leasing more land. That allowed us to run more cows. And so it used to be when I went to the post office at the end of the month, I'm like, oh crap. There's all the bills. There's all the bills. I don't want to open that. But then I'm like, I was running to the mailbox because I knew there was
money's coming in.
There was checks in there. There was checks in there. And then we got ourselves out of debt. And once I got out of debt, I had somebody pulling the same direction as I was.
Yes.
Jan.
Yes.
We were both pulling the same direction, and we both had the same work ethic.
And so in terms of, if you think about it from a conceptual standpoint, you had the land already,
Yes.
but you got more land. You
Yes.
found a way to monetize that. You were yoked to somebody who also was on board with how you were going to go about that.
That's correct. That's correct.
And how then did you scale? Because you're now at 1900 acres?
Yeah, 1900.
1900.
Yeah, 1920 acres.
Okay, not shabby.
Yeah. No. We started out with, 134 acres that
Wow.
we owned, or I owned and the bank owned.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got out of debt, we just started buying livestock.
Okay.
And the livestock the way we do it is we make a sale on our farm now, a livestock sale, or a guard dog sale, or a sheep sale, or a mushroom sale, whatever. There's a percentage of that goes into a land account. And that land account, when it gets up there to the level that we can buy another farm,
love that.
we buy another farm.
I love that.
So we've got elderly landowners. We've been able to buy 2 of them. And Jan bought one over here when we got married. So we got 1, 2, I gotta count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5, 6. Yeah, we own 6 farms now.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And so it was by focusing on the livestock, and that fueled the ability to buy more land.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, let me cover the livestock a little bit. To really get ahead in livestock production, and I just had a guy on the phone a while ago from Arkansas. I said, Greg, and he was really wanting an answer from me. He said, Greg, can a person make a living today grazing cattle on a farm? Can a person make a living? And I'm rotating the animals, maybe not as good as you are. That's what he said. But he said, I'm rotating my animals. Can I make a living? And I said, only if you raise good ones. And what I mean by that, folks, right now, cattle prices are really high at the sale barn. But cattle prices do this. They do. They go down the bottom. And so if you're tied into that market where you've got to bring your cow or your calves into the sale barn every fall, and you get the price that they give you, Jessica, you may have the best calves in the sale barn, but yours is going to bring the same price as everybody else's. You know why? Because you haven't done any marketing. We as farmers, we hate to talk to people. We just want to be on our farms and deal with the cows and be left alone. We do, you know. I used to be that way. I'm not that way anymore. I want to deal with my customers. I enjoy dealing with my customers. It's got to be a two-way street. What I mean by that, there's got to be an advantage there for your customer, and there's got to be an advantage for you. And if you can sell people really good, high-quality livestock that can eat this grass and stay fat and give a calf every year, that's worth something. And the animals are broke to hot wire. They're not going to run over you.
Yes.
I just had a YouTuber this week tell me about his daughter. He made the comment, she just went into surgery this week.
She was run over?
Yep, a bull got her down.
Oh, goodness.
One of their bulls was pushing her around on top of the ground, broke her collarbone and I think some ribs. And I'm like, well, I hope you put him in, what we call hamburger camp. And they did. They hauled him in the next day and butchered him, but that didn't help her.
No.
So when you sell animals, we sell very docile animals. We're going to sell animals that you can walk through. You and I can walk through them. They've never seen you before. We've got to do that this year.
Yes, I did.
At the grazing school.
Yes, I did.
Were the animals freaked out because we were out there?
No.
They didn't pay us any attention at all. So that's what we're talking about. You've got to be able to market what you raise. And you need to build the brand.
Yes.
You need to build the brand.
Interesting. So when did that, I guess, aha moment happen for you in this? Because you have had quite a long career doing this.
Yes.
And obviously you probably weren't making YouTube videos 30 years ago. And so talk to me about that brand journey, because I think you have actually probably one of the most well-recognized brands at this point.
Well, the secret to any brand, I think, is to be genuine. I don't know. You've seen my videos, Jessica, and I've had other people tell me the same thing. Say, Greg, you just get to the point. Yes. You don't put any music out there, and we love the way you edit. I'm like, edit? I've never edited a video in my life. Whatever I shoot, that's what you get. And people complain about the noise on my, because I don't have a muffler and all that. I said, I don't care. And I said, that makes it unique. It makes it real.
Yes.
And so I think if you're going to have a story, first of all, it needs to be true. Second of all, you've got to stand behind your product. Because, you know, when you're in the livestock business, sometimes they don't work out. And you got to be willing to step up to the plate and say, you know what? Sometimes they don't work, and that one evidently didn't, and let's talk about it. You know, and try and do the best you can to make it right. And
So what I'm hearing is integrity.
it's integrity and honesty. You may sell somebody an inferior animal once, but you know the old saying, bad news travels twice as fast as good news. You don't want to be doing that. You're not going to be in the cattle or any kind of a seed stock. You know, what is seed stock? Seed stock are animals that somebody wants to buy to start their own herd or flock with. So sell them good stuff. You know, sell them some of your best, and let them go from there. Yeah.
In terms of your philosophy, because I know that's also evolved over time, where are you today in that space in terms of your relationship to grass, the sun, inputs? I think you've touched on that a little bit, but I know you've experienced some game changes in terms of even fencing and
Yeah. So, yeah. You know, as far as fencing, you brought that up. We have a lot less interior fencing. When I started out, Jessica, the farm we're standing on right here, I had 30 separate paddocks, permanent, with with a high tensile wire. And that's what I will say about interns and young people: get them on your property. Build you, if you have to, go buy a mobile home or whatever. But they've got to. I feel like they need to live on the property. Because the closer they are to you, they don't have to drive as far to get to work. You're going to need them in the middle of the, you know, maybe in calving season. They don't need to be driving 10 miles to get there. Have them live on the farm, whatever that takes. Maybe it's an old house you can fix up. But these young folks, they think differently than you and I do.